With a big run. Night Ops inside of him. Rated R Superstar in the center. These are the three now for the final furlong. Silver State and Rated R Superstar. Looks like it's down to these two. Silver State, Rated R Superstar alongside. They are shoulder to shoulder, a 16th out. It's another thriller at Oaklawn. Silver State, Rated R Superstar. Silver State just in front.
Welcome back to Racing Rundown. Today we have a preview of the Grade 2 Oaklawn Handicap. This is a very competitive race. Not any of the big top classic names that we would expect for some of these handicap races, but this is a very good group of horses that are vying to be in that second level of, not quite top Breeders' Cup Classic contenders, but definitely horses that are worthy of a race like this. This is a very competitive, wide-open race, so we're going to talk about every single horse like we usually do, the usual drill on Racing Rundown. And the first horse that we're going to discuss is Silver State, one of two horses in here for trainer Steve Asmussen. He's definitely Steve's better shot in this race. Silver State's coming off of 4 straight really nice wins. This is a horse who's really found himself in his 4-year-old campaign. 2 wins in listed races at Oaklawn. He passed up the Razorback back in February, so he did not have to run against Mystic Guide, but those 2 stakes wins that he has at Oaklawn coming after 2 nice allowance scores at Churchill Downs and Keeneland. He's definitely not a bad horse. He only has 1 bad race on his resume, and that was the Louisiana Derby, and that's a race where I kind of draw a line through, at least with him, and there were other horses in that race that were closing, and he just did not have any kind of pace to run into at all. It was a merry-go-round on the front end, and it showed by the fact that you had major closers like Modernist, Major Fed, and Forcible all not running well because it was a merry-go-round between Wells Bayou and New York Traffic. So Silver State, definitely a horse that I think is a lot better than that Louisiana Derby score. Before that, nice runs in stakes races, a couple of stakes placing efforts in the Lecompton, one of the divisions of the Risen Star. So he's not a bad horse. He's very consistent, and if you really like those 4 straight wins, then he's definitely a horse that I could 100% advise you to go with. Number 2 is Express Train, the horse that is probably going to be the favorite in here. He comes in from California. This is a horse who's a very hard luck loser of the Santa Anita Handicap. He ran a very, very good race in defeat behind Idol in that race. He only lost by half length, and it looked for a while in the stretch like he had it, but Idol just got him in the last quarter mile of that race. But, before that, greatest stakes winner of the San Pasquale. Good second place finish behind Charlatan. You can't expect him to beat a horse like Charlatan at a distance where Charlatan excels at more than anything else. And then, nice allowance wins for him, a nice maiden breaking effort. You look at some of the horses that he's running against in his back class. He has 2 out of the money finishes. One of those was on the grass, so it doesn't count. And then the other one was in the American Pharoah back in 2019. The horses from that race don't look too great on paper, but, at the time, 8 Rings was a really nice horse. And Shoplifted has run some good races since that American Pharoah Stakes. So definitely not a shame to be 4th in that group at that time. Obviously, now it would be something that you would be a little bit more put off by, but I'm not super concerned about him being 4th in that race as a 2-year-old. He's a nice horse, and I think he has a really good shot to win it in here. A lot of people like to dismiss horses coming in from California, but he's run some really nice races out there that I'm willing to give him his shot here. Number 3 is Fearless, coming out of a win in the Gulfstream Park Mile. That was a very puzzling victory for me, just because he was coming off of the layoff that he was coming off of in that Gulfstream Park Mile. But, those kind of surprises happen, and, it shows that this is not a bad horse. He's not too consistent, which is the thing that concerns me about him in here. He had that win in the Gulfstream Park Mile. That was his first effort, or his first winning effort in Graded Stakes Company. And, outside of Performer, who, we've been, both myself and my co-host have been strong defenders of the now retired Performer on this show. But aside from that, it wasn't really that good of a group, and I don't think Performer was really in his element. So I don't want to say that Fearless is a bad horse, but his consistency is too much for me to give him a serious chance to win this race. And here, I could see a reason being made. He's coming out of his best career victory, and, second back off the layoff is always going to be a good thing for Todd Fletcher. So, layoff doesn't really matter for them, as we've seen with some of Todd's notable horses, but it's just more so than anything else, the consistency, and I trust more horses in here than I do Fearless, so I'm going to pass on Fearless in this race. And the next horse is Warrior's Charge for trainer Brad Cox. This horse is coming out of a second place finish in an allowance race. Going back to last year, though, he looked like he was going to run some really nice races toward the middle and latter part of 2020. He didn't really put it together, though, after his very good second place finish in the Oaklawn Handicap. Before that, he won the Razorback, and going back to December of 2019, that was a nice allowance victory for him after a pretty significant layoff from a not bad effort in the Preakness by any means. That was a very respectable fourth place finish. This is a horse who has always had some kind of consistency throughout his career. Doesn't get it done on the big grade 1 days. Fourth in the Preakness. His fourth in the Met Mile was a good fourth place finish, though, so definitely not something that I take a lot away from him. But he hasn't crossed the wire first since the Razorback, which is my big problem with him. He was put up by disqualification in the Philip Island, but he was not necessarily impeded in that race and was definitely backing up. So, very controversial disqualification. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but, Warrior's Charge did get put up in there, so he does have that victory for him. But next start, the Ack, he just went a little bit too fast in that race, but he was only beaten 3 lengths in there, so the chart's a little bit deceiving. 8th place finish looks like he may have been beaten a lot worse than he actually was, so not something to completely toss him out on. He does really well at Oaklawn, and that's the other thing. You look at his resume. He won an allowance race before the Preakness by open lengths at Oaklawn. He's a stakes winner and was second place in this race last year behind By My Standards, who just won last weekend at Oaklawn. So horse who beat him in the Oaklawn Handicap last year's come back to win. We know By My Standards is a good horse. So if you like the back class, if you like the track record at Oaklawn Park, and you like Brad Cox, who's been as hot as anyone can be this year, then definitely Warrior's Charge can be your horse. I'm just a little bit concerned about the consistency for him. The next horse is Guest Suite, who's the longest shot on the board, and rightfully so. This horse has been running for a very long time. He actually won the 5th seasons last year at Oaklawn, and does have a win in his last start, which was an allowance at Oaklawn. But, outside of that, this is a horse who hasn't done too well at graded stakes company over the past couple of years. He is a graded stakes winner. He won the Lecomte Stakes in 2017, but 2017 was a very long time ago. The last time that he ran a good race in a graded stake was in the Ben Ally in Keelan in 2018. He was 9th in the Razorback last year. Even though he was a stakes winner at Oaklawn, that 5th season's win hasn't really translated. After that 9th place finish in the Razorback, he was 5th in the Essex, and then did not have a win until that last start, which was an allowance victory on the 25th of March. I'm going to take a pass on him in here just because the consistency is not there for him. The next horse we're going to move on to is Owendale. This is the other Brad Cox horse in this race, and actually, he is probably going to be shorter on the odds board than Warrior's Charges, because whenever Owendale's in horse races, people bet him, and I can understand why, because Owendale's a very hard trier, and Owendale rarely runs a bad race, and his bad races come against very tough competition. He was 10th in the Breeders' Cup Classic in 2019, 5th in last year's Dirt Mile, but when he runs against competition that he is able to be competitive against, you see seconds and thirds, and at 3, he was a multiple graded stakes winner and ran a very nice race in the Preakness. That's an underrated good race that Owendale ran in the Preakness. So he's not a bad horse. I just don't like his inability to win races. Owendale will run monster second and third place finishes in these kind of races, but he doesn't get the job done winning. You saw that last time in the New Orleans Classic. You've seen it in races like the Pimlico Special. That one, he got ran down late, and I just think that I can't trust him to win the race. I'm going to use him in this race just because I don't think you can get away without using Owendale in here, but I'm not going to pick him to win just because he has a habit of not winning horse races. The number 7 horse in this race is Rated R Superstar, and this horse is coming off of a very nice second place finish in the Essex behind Silver State. You look at his career, this is a horse who's been around for a very long time. Another one like Guest Suite, a horse who's been around for a very long time, but he's a horse who is always running some nice races, has nice races left in the tank. You look at the number of stakes wins he has in his career. He's a stakes winner at Oaklawn, and like I mentioned, that good run that he had in the Essex wasn't a bad run for him in the Razorback. That was a race where he just had to, no one was going to beat Mystic Guide that day, and it was pretty much a wash for everyone else. So I'm willing to give him a pass for that. He had a victory in a claiming race earlier in the meet, so I think that this is a horse that you could definitely use as your value play underneath. I know I said a lot of nice things about him. I don't think he's a win candidate, but the price is probably going to be pretty nice on him, so if you think that you can use him as your underneath horse, I would definitely say that he's one of the 2 that I considered for my value play in this race. The other horse that I considered for my value play is the number 8 horse, Silver Prospector, the other Steve Asmussen horse, another example of a horse who does rather well at Oaklawn Park for the most part. couple of disappointing efforts in the Rebel and the Arkansas Derby, but those were against a lot tougher competition than he's gone up against in recent efforts. The consistency is very lacking for Silver Prospector. He's a horse that I liked as a 3-year-old. I don't think that he's a bad horse. You look at, he was second in the Razorback, and that was second behind Mystic Guide, so obviously he wasn't going to finish ahead of Mystic Guide. But go back to his 3-year-old campaign. He was a winner in the Southwest, but fourth in the Smarty Jones. So you see the inconsistency there. He won the Kentucky Jockey Club at 2 at Churchill. Other races that he's won, he won an allowance back on October 30th of last year. So the consistency is the real problem with Silver Prospector. But I think Oaklawn is a track that he's had enough success at that I think you can. And that last race is encouraging enough for me that I think you can feel pretty confident in him being able to run at least a credible race underneath. And with the price that he's probably going to be, you can definitely use him as your value play underneath in this race. So at the end of the day, I did go with Express Train on top just because I really, really liked that run that he had in the Santa Anita Handicap. And obviously he was a winner of the San Pasquale, which is at this distance. So I think that benefits him very much so. So he's going to be my top pick in here. For second, I'm going to have Owendale be my second place horse just because I don't think you can get away without using Owendale in here. And for third, I'm going to have Silver Prospector just because I think he is the best horse in this race at a price. But you could go with Rated R Superstar, or if you wanted to go completely bombs away, could use Guest Suite, or you could use a horse that isn't as much of a long shot, but wanted to try to make some value in this race. So I'm going to use Silver Prospector for my value horse. That's it for this week's preview. We'll see you later on next week and into the Kentucky Derby season. We have previews for all those races on Derby Day. Have a good one.